Hello, Americans. I'm Paul Harvey.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States.
President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of the serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve. Do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old, I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flame.
The President of the United States is racist.
If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. I would caution against extremes.
I'm here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game.
In hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Start the movie.
Throughout all of recorded human history, and even today, powerful secret societies, cults, and religions have all had the same character in common. In Christian, Jewish, and Islamic religions, Lucifer is the adversary of the one true God, Yahweh. Whereas in secret societies and cults such as the Skull and Bones Club, the Freemasons, and the Illuminati, Lucifer is the bringer of enlightenment, and Yahweh is an imposter, or otherwise can be overthrown. When most people think of Lucifer, they often think of a red guy with horns, hoofs, and a pitchfork. Or they think of the typical depiction of an angel we often see in religious artwork. However, when we look into the scriptures from which Lucifer originated and put it into context with other historical writings and archaeological findings, Lucifer appears very different than what we might expect. It is true that Lucifer is described as being the most beautiful angel that God ever created. Lucifer can take on many forms and appear as an angel of light. However, his consistent form is described of that of a reptile. He is that old serpent in the garden and the dragon in Revelations, called Satan and the devil. What's an interesting side note is that when God's throne is described in Ezekiel chapter 1, the reptiles and the amphibians are missing from God's throne. There are other accounts from outside of the Bible which tell us a very similar story. If you ask most people what the first civilization was, they'll often say Egypt or Babylon, but both of those are misconceptions. If they say Sumer, they would be correct. The Sumerian civilization began around 3000 BC as Eridu, Uruk, and at least 6 other cities sprang up across Mesopotamia. According to numerous Sumerian writings, thousands of gods called the Anunnaki descended from the heavens after a great cataclysm. The Anunnaki taught humankind the fundamentals of society, from reading and writing to mathematics and organized government. Anu was the Sumerian god of the sun and the leader of the Anunnaki. The region of the Sumerian Empire in those days was known as the Plains of Shinar, which means the land of the shining ones. Likewise, the name Sumer is named for the sun. Although the Anunnaki are never explicitly described in texts, the word Anunnaki translates to the shining ones. However, Sumerian figurines of the Anunnaki depict them as being reptilian in nature. Reptilian gods from the heavens are not exclusive to Sumer. They can be found in every civilization featuring pyramids on every continent in the world. The word angel and the word alien, in the context that we use those words today, mean the same thing. Beings from outside this world. As silly as it may seem on the surface, isn't that what David Icke claims rules the world today? Draconians, reptoids, or reptilians are the crown jewel of all conspiracy theories. And in context of everything we just discussed, it's not such a new thing. And does it seem so silly after all, as it goes back to the very dawn of civilization? These reptilian aliens are humanoid and are also malevolent, hostile, and negative towards the human race, as they deem humans inferior to them. Does that sound like somebody else we know? So let's take a look at some of the similarities between Lucifer's Legion, the Anunnaki, and the reptilians. Apart from being reptilian and from another world, they're all marooned here. Whether it's Lucifer's Legion, the Anunnaki, or the reptilian shapeshifters, they're all stranded on Earth, fighting an ongoing war with another off-world faction. Lucifer is at war with Yahweh. The Anunnaki were a rebellion against their homeworld's monarch, and the reptilian aliens are at war with beings called the Pleiadians. Lucifer's Legion and the Anunnaki are both associated with light. They both also have the ability to change forms, and although the reptilians themselves are not associated with light directly, they still possess the ability to shapeshift. But perhaps the most interesting commonality among all of these, Lucifer tempted humanity with the knowledge of good and evil. The Anunnaki shared their knowledge with the Sumerians to develop the Sumerian Empire. And the reptilians are said to make deals with the governments of the world in exchange for technology. It is a well-documented fact that cults have largely been behind societal and technological development since the founding of the United States. The United States' founding was largely facilitated by Freemasons who aspired to bring about the Age of Enlightenment. Manly P. Hall, 33-degree Scottish Freemason, wrote in his book, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, quote, "The true Mason is not creed-bound. He realizes with the divine illumination of his lodge that as a Mason, his religion must be universal. Christ, Buddha, or Mohammed, the name means little, for he recognizes only the light and not the bearer. He worships at every shrine, bows before every altar, whether in temple, mosque, or cathedral, realizing his truer understanding the oneness of all spiritual truth." End quote. Much of the technology driving the modern world came from advancements made in Nazi Germany, and the scientists affiliated with the Thule Society, which moved to the United States after the fall of Nazi Germany in a U.S. program called Operation Paperclip. But it didn't begin there. The Manhattan Project scientists Ernest O. Lawrence, Luis Alvarez, Edward Teller, and Glenn Seaborg were all Bohemian Club members, and the plan for the Manhattan Project was actually hatched at the Bohemian Grove. In the post-war era, NASA's rocket program wouldn't be possible without known cultist Jack Parsons, who was one of the founders of Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena in 1943. Jack Parsons was affiliated with Aleister Crowley and a key member of Crowley's cult called Ordo Templi Orientis, and he attended a performance of the Gnostic Mass in 1939. Ordo Templi Orientis is a quasi-Mason magical order founded in Germany in 1901 and focuses on sex magic as the key to Hermetic and Masonic secrets. Aleister Crowley joined the Ordo Templi Orientis in 1910 and was given the rank as 7th degree luminary. The order maintains lodges to this day in more than 20 countries around the world, and Crowley's writings on Enochian mysticism and sex rituals remains in their teachings to this day. So to answer the question, who is Lu, all we have to do is look from a broader view and see what they do. Lucifer's Legion, the Anunnaki, and the Draconian shapeshifters would all have to have a leader, wouldn't they? And certainly, they have the same agenda, as well as the same characteristics. So I guess that old saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he doesn't exist, rings true. For Elucidated Info, this is Justin James, signing off.
I'm here on the ground with my nose in it since the whole thing began. I've nurtured every sensation man has been inspired to have. I cared about what he wanted, and I never judged him. Why? Because I never rejected him, in spite of all his imperfections. I'm a fan of man! Who, in their right mind, Kevin, could possibly deny the 20th century was entirely mine? All of it, Kevin! All of it. Mine. I'm peeking, Kevin. It's my time.